Bye weeks are here. Granted, it's the 49ers and the Jets, but still, maybe there's some pieces you want to add to your team. Well, let's take a look at some potential waiver wire pickups, but before that, what's crack-a-lack? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, give me a thumbs up if you enjoy the content, and come on, bro, and subscribe. It's much appreciated, much obliged. And let's go ahead, let's get into this. Let's talk about quarterbacks. I want to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Gardner Minshew, because man, this man has some great memes about him. I saw this one meme that was like, what is it? Before Gardner went to college, he told his dad, "You're the man of the house now." Yo, man, Gardner Minshew is my hero. But he should be, he's a viable quarterback in some leagues if you are kind of in a rut right now, because there have been a lot of injuries at quarterback. In half PPR leagues, he's scored at least 20 points or more, and he's got a pretty decent matchup. Granted, like this week, granted it's Denver. They have the sixth best passing, like they're sixth best against the pass, but they have yet to intercept the ball. So I have a feeling that they're gonna, like, this offense goes through right now Minshew. So he is not a bad pickup. And for the second week in a row, my next one's Andy Dalton. I'm just feel like I want to throw up in my mouth, but he is also a viable fantasy option. He's available in 18% of leagues on ESPN. He's attempted at least 36 passes, so he gets a lot of opportunity, a lot of volume to do that. And he has a great matchup against this, Pittsburgh this week. They're 31st against the pass, and I mean, one of these teams got to win, right? So I expect Andy Dalton to have a pretty big game there. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about Kyle Allen coming out of nowhere. And you know what? I said this guy was a sit-em. Granted, he had a great matchup against the Cardinals because they can't stop anybody. But, I mean, he was kind of a question mark. Who was starting Kyle Allen? Nobody was. But he will be the starter for Week 4. Cam will be sitting out. He's got a good matchup against Houston. If they want to win that game, it's going to have to be a shootout, just like they had to do with the Eagles. And luckily for them, Houston's not that great against the pass either. I think they ranked 22nd. Next guy on my list is Case Keenum. I know. This is like, if you are in dire, if you are desperate, if you are thirsty for a quarterback, Case Keenum is not a bad option. I mean, okay, let's take a look at his pass attempts. He's had 37, 44, and 43. That's wild. And I mean, they can't run the ball, so they have to pass. They have to pass if they're going to try to win games. And luckily for them, this week, they face the Giants, who can't stop anybody through the air. So it's actually a really good matchup. But a guy with maybe a little more upside in that matchup is Daniel Jones. He came out and he balled against Tampa. Granted, they don't have the best secondary in the world either, but he did. He came out and he balled, as long as he doesn't fumble like 3 times a game. But if they want, like, especially if they're gonna win this game now, they don't have Barkley. So a lot's gonna be asked from Daniel Jones, and he looked really good, much better than Eli Manning did, with a very limited skill position players. So it's not a bad matchup, but either Washington's right there at the bottom as far as protecting or guarding against the pass or whatnot. So it's not a bad matchup. He's available in 18% of leagues. So if you're really in a tight bind for a quarterback, you don't have a guy you can really trust, or maybe your guy has a really an exceptionally bad matchup, one of these guys, they're viable options. On to running backs, and honestly, the top priority should be Darrell Williams. He's not a long-term starter. You kind of want to keep your eye on Shady McCoy, because he retweaked his ankle. You want to know if Damian Williams will be back for this game. So there's a lot of variables going into this, but he looked exceptionally good. Darwin Thompson was virtually a non-factor. So this guy, he is going to get a bulk of the snaps, and he's got a good matchup against a really bad defense in Detroit. So there is that, but like I said, he is not a long-term fix. Once those guys are healthy, then he is back to the waiver wire. But let's talk about Rex Burkhead because I'm a Sony Michel owner and I am terrified. This guy, Burkhead, outsnapped Sony Michel. Brandon Bolden outsnapped Sony Michel. Granted, they didn't really need him, but I mean, still, that's a lot to worry about if you're a Sony Michel owner. But it looks like Burkhead, honestly, is the lead back in this offense, which is wild. It's not bad to roster him right now at this point. He's available in almost 80% of leagues, so he's a good pickup off the waiver wire. Another guy who's a good pickup popped off, but they were facing Miami, so who doesn't pop off? Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, he's not an immediate start. This is a guy that should just be rostered. He's a high priority handcuff, and he might see some garbage time, but we saw what he could do against the Dolphins, so he's a guy that's more than likely going to be right in your bench most of the year. But if you're one of those Saquon Barkley owners, man, my condolences. He's out, what, 4 to 8 weeks? It's going to be rough. I only put Wayne Gallman on here because he is the backup. He is now the current starter for the Giants. But even when Barkley went down, it's not like this guy did anything of like substance. He's owned in virtually every league. But I mean, if honestly, if you're a Barkley owner and you can't get any, like you can't get Williams, you can't get Burkhead, you might as well grab the current starter there for the Giants. And at receivers, Taylor Gabriel. He's owned in 97% of leagues, which is wild. But there's a few things going on right now in that offense because he got concussed in that Monday night game. So he might not be playing this Sunday, which is a bit worrisome. But in the games he has played, he's not a bad guy to roster. He's seen an immense amount of volume outside of that Denver game, which was just a wreck. But he's seen like at least 5. He's seen 5 targets in week 1. He saw 7 in this past Monday, and he's a viable option. I don't really trust Mitch Trubisky, but this team, especially this week, they need to pass to win. They have to face Minnesota, and I love that Bear defense, but I don't think they could keep Dalvin Cook held in check for so long while they wait for Mitch Trubisky to warm up. So if Gabriel's just a good get in general. Philip Dorsett, probably a better get. Now that there's no AB, Antonio Brown is gone. He's out of town. This guy should be on every roster. He is a great start. I mean, in the games without AB, he had 10 catches for 148 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's just ridiculous. He's their deep threat there in a offense that just can't be stopped right now. I got DJ Chark up here again, back-to-back weeks, and he proved this week once again why he should be on a roster. Granted, he's owned in 41% of leagues, but he should be on every roster. He's a good flex option. He's Gardner Minshew's guy. He's his go-to guy. He's seen at least 4 targets and 4 catches in every game. He's scored in every game. It's just he's a guy that needs to be had. He needs to be had. He's a good flex option. Speaking of a good flex option, I got Deontay Johnson from Pittsburgh. He's one of my favorites. I thought this guy, he should have been the number 2 from the get-go. I liked him the minute they drafted him out of Toledo. And this week just proved much of the same. He saw 6 targets. He got a touchdown, only had 3 catches though. But I mean, I'm a bit worried because of Mason Rudolph didn't look so great there. But if they want to win, they have to pass the ball because lame stinking Connor ain't doing nothing. They can't run the football. They have to pass. They're going to have to do that through the air. Obviously, you have to pass the ball through the air. That was a bit of a brain fart there. But I like him. He's a good flex option. And he's got a good matchup this week against Cincinnati in that battle of the can't win a game. Last guy I have on this list, I had him I think on my list prior, is Cole Beasley. I think he should be owned, and he should be owned in every PPR league. This guy's a PPR stud. He's not going to get you touchdowns, but boy oh boy, he gets targeted a lot. He's he's Josh Allen's favorite target. He's seen 23 targets this year, and he's gotten 17 catches out of that. Like I said, he won't get in the end zone, but he's a target and he's a receiving machine. And now on to tight ends. And if you don't really have a starting tight end, or you're one of those guys that streams tight ends, you're pretty much picking from the bottom of the barrel. But there is one extremely reliable guy, Will Disley, that's only owned in 27% of leagues, which is wild because, okay, first game, he only saw 2 targets, he had 1 catch. He had to leave the game early because of injury. Since then, he's had 5 targets, he's had 7 targets. He's had 3 touchdowns the last 2 games. He is a monster, he is a reliable threat, and I'm just saying, you do a lot worse at tight end, OJ Howard. Cough, cough. I should have coughed before. But these next 2 guys, they're a bit more launch shots. They're a bit more guys to sit on the bench, wait and see if you're that guy that streams tight ends. Dawson Knox, he's virtually owned in no league, but this past Sunday, he was 3rd in routes ran for the team, and he was 2nd in targets. So that type of workload is, I'll take that. I'll take that, especially if you're a guy that streams tight ends. But I do want to see actual production before I start. This is a guy you would sit on the bench first. Irv Smith Jr. This is a guy that's, since the beginning of the year, he's seen an increased role in the offense slowly but steadily. I know he's got Kyle Rudolph there in front of him, but he's a much better receiving threat than Rudolph is. He saw a all-time high. Granted, he's only played 3 games in his career, but he saw 31 snaps this past Sunday, which is 50% of the snaps they had, but that was the most he's seen all year. And if you think back to Kirk Cousins' days in Washington, he loved targeting the tight end, especially when it was like Jordan Reed. I don't think Kyle Rudolph really was the type of tight end that Kirk Cousins really liked throwing to. I think he's going to love Irv Smith Jr., especially if they keep increasing his role in the offense. But put your foot off the freaking pedal, man. Just wait and see. Vernon Davis, though, it doesn't look like Jordan Reed's coming back. So Vernon Davis looks like he will be the starter for the remainder of the year there in Washington. He's not a bad pickup. You could do a lot worse. He's seen at least 4 targets in all games this year. This team can't run the ball. They have to pass to stay in games. So, hey, like I said, you could do a lot worse. At tight end is just really hard. You're just like, you're scraping from the bottom of the barrel at this point if you don't have a starting tight end already. That's it for the video. Hopefully I was able to help you out with whatever fantasy needs you had. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.